Hi, everyone, and welcome to the bi-weekly Cancer Farm meeting. We are March 1. And as always, this meeting is recorded and under the code of conduct and will be published later on YouTube. So I invite everyone in this call to be kind. Before we start, do we have new people willing to introduce themselves?
So I think I missed my chance to introduce myself last time, so I can do it shortly right now. So hi, I'm Patrick, and I'm here from Kubernetes. Yeah, I'm not a member. I'm willing to be one someday. But yeah, I will be trying to help you with infrastructure tickets.
I think you're downplaying a little bit. Patrick's also been talking with Justin a bit and doing some Terraform review and looking up. I already forgot the project name. The thing that lets us do Terraform tests and PRs.
Yeah, it's called Atlantis. So I'm in sync with Justin, doing some small evaluations so that we could enable people to contribute and see the Terraform plans and so on. So yeah, the main concern right now is security, as we have public repos. So yeah, doing some research around it.
Hey there, my name's Jerry Howe. I work for AWS, and I may be working with DIMS, kind of migrating some workloads to AWS. We will see. I'm also ORIS maintainer, the CNCF project.
Hi, I'm Karsten Wade, and I think I surfaced end of last year, but I'm now kind of informally surfaced, but I'm not kind of formally or something like that coming around. I'm a community architect in Red Hat's open source program office, and essentially I'm here because our head of emerging technologies, Aaron Boyd, who's our CNCF governing representative, was responding to a request for go learn things and see how to connect people together and how it can help with this kind of hybridization stuff. More like learn things and connect people together, because all the smarts are out there already, and they're not inside of me. So, but I'll see what I can do, so I'm just going to start helping out around here, and anything related directions you point me.
Anyone else?
I think we know everyone else on here.
Okay. Let's start with billing cost. And yeah, I'm gonna say this. Do I share? Is this enough for everyone, or do I need to zoom in more?
Good.
Okay. We have March 1, so I think we can do a monthly review for the last month. So I think the two change I would say we notice is basically the fact that we have, what is that? Okay, I'm going to use this project. So we have artifact.case.io now serving from S3 by default, and registry.case.io serving from S3 by default for non-GCP IPs. Yeah.
I like seeing that drop right after February, like 17th.
Yeah, and that's what we paid for using Cloud CDN. Yeah, I don't think there's something more to say about this. And if I look at basically the cost for last month, I think for this month, by end of this month, we will basically see basically a less cost related to February, because this is basically what was, we didn't do the switch at the beginning of the month, so we had to pay for it, like and networking and traffic from H5 registry. So by end of for the month of March, we might see costs go down again. That's the expectation. If I check for compared to January, I don't think there's a fair check, because we're comparing 31 days versus 28 days. So the comparison might not be fair here.
I
So,
think one thing we could do is probably, if you want to compare, look at like the first week of February and then the last week of February.
Yeah, we can try that. Let's say first week of February is like 1 to 8. Yeah, so we spent almost 100K. And I expect, we spent 7.
So now I would say do 21 through 28.
No, yeah.
So actually, we had some pretty major shifts in spend over the course of the past month. So if you want an accurate idea of our current spend, you want to look at the 19th through the 25th, because it's a full week, weekend to weekend, since we have things that are heavy during the week, and it's post the like major changes we made. I've run those numbers recently. We're projected now to something like 3.68 million this year instead of 3.9 to 4. We've cut around 300K. We do have things going up, but we made some pretty large cuts in the 300K plus range. The artifacts.k8s.io changes and the registry.k8s.io changes that landed the past month are like 6 figures each. Those were some of the lowest hanging opportunities that we had.
Yeah. So I think we did some like what 20K of saving this month.
And those landed somewhere around the 8th and the 17th. So if you try to look earlier in the month, it's relevant for knowing how far we are into the year. But if you want to get a good idea, like what our like trend going forward is, you got to look from like about the 19th forward.
Got it.
So the projection that I've made is based on looking at our spend up until that point and just taking it wholesale and then projecting out the rest of the year based on that that week. And a couple of us that have been discussing this one-on-one have independently come to about the same conclusion. It's in the 3.7 mil-ish range now, which is down from the 3.9 to 4-ish range.
But it's still up from last year.
Yes, it's still up from last year, and we still have trends of usage increasing on many things. So I don't know if Justin is in this call today.
No,
yeah, he said he couldn't make it.
Justin in Santa Barbara did some analysis again on the registry, the old one, and unfortunately, the trend that we have currently is actually usage leveled off, because our total usage of people pulling container images is up. And by getting people to move over to the new registry, we've mostly just eaten some of the growth. We haven't actually caused a noticeable decline in usage there. It's more like leveling a bit. But in many other parts of the project, you just see usage is increasing. There's another one that's very, 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 very recent trend here. The triage spend. So BigQuery analysis of CI logs was up quite a bit this year. We just last night merged a change to drop that, or yesterday afternoon. So we also have a smaller shift there that we won't have a accurate picture of until we come back like later this week. But
Yeah.
preliminarily, we dropped something like at least half of that spend, and that was north of 300 a day. So
I think the one concerning thing for me is basically we still have cost up for K8s artifact prod. And so something's happening. Other people doing upgrade or new bootstrapping new cluster using very old version of Kubernetes or something happening, because just like we got up by 9%, even with all the effort to communicate that registry.ksotaro is up and running, we still see the cost trending for the old registry. So I'm not sure about how we can identify this trend. Anyway, if you have any ideas, feel free to drop them. Okay. I think the next thing is AI review. Jiffy, what do you want to talk about? Because all of this.
I put those initiatives in just so we can cover if there's any updates for them. I think Ben kind of talked about registry and artifacts current state.
Yeah.
I can kind of give an update on DL.K8s, but specifically Fastly. Lawyers are going to lawyer and they're still going back and forth because there's a disagreement as to language. I apologize. Lawyers are going to lawyer.
Okay, so we blocked on, I think we blocked from a legal perspective.
Yep.
Okay.
we're also Arnaud and a couple of us are currently working on trying to provide some more information about what exactly the usage looks like. I just received a document requesting some info today, and I've been pulling that in the background here.
Yeah, basically that request is based on the fact we need to upgrade the monthly bandwidth we need for DL.K8s.io, because we initially requested 60 terabytes, now we go to 10 petabytes per month. So we need to provide some information related to that. Next, is there like any question before we still continue with the AI reviews?
I'd bring up that we do have some more efforts coming. So as I mentioned, the triage one is really recent, and I've already started speaking to a few about this. I've opened some discussions with the scale leads to talk about the possibility of reducing the spend there and like which things to prioritize. So I've got a thread going with the scalability leadership where I've identified every single CI job that we have that runs on the community infrastructure and what it does and how often it runs. And we're running through all of them with the scale leads to identify which of those are most important, which of those we can cut back on, and what our options are there. And I hope we'll have more like concrete proposals soon, trying to get some more feedback from them on that first, but before like testing / infra cap / steering caps come in and say, okay, we have to cut this. Trying to get a better idea of like if any of those can be turned off or reduced frequency, or how bad any of that might be for the project. We have a I think we already have some plans. I have one I'll probably be filing later today to drop the 100 node pre-submit and see in production if we actually still need that, or if we are just infrequently catching issues in the periodic job instead. Holding it to the same bar that we would hold a new test going into pre-submit.
And any cuts to scalability tests in my mind, and I mean, this is something you could convey to them, is short-term and temporary, because ideally we can get scalability tests running on AWS, and like those would have to be validated. I'm not talking about even necessarily this like half or even like until Q4, but you know, eventually that would be nice to have them or some of them moved over.
Not counting on anyone doing that, and it's a little bit more involved than I would have hoped as I started digging into that. But I would also say that they're temporary because once we bring the GCP spend back under control, my strong opinion with steering, testing, etc. hats on is that scale testing is exactly the kind of thing this budget should be used for, and the amount they're using is completely reasonable. It's just we need levers that we can pull this year without like trashing the project or our users if possible. And there aren't many of those. Scale testing is one of the things that there's an obvious big lever you can pull and say, well, if we just didn't do that so often, that's a lot of money. And that's a config change. That's not a super involved project. It's very straightforward to reduce how much we run that. We're trying to be somewhat strategic about it, though.
Okay. So there's not, I don't think there's there's no quick action right now. We just need to get consensus between you and the scalability leads about what needs to be done in the for this month.
Yeah, with my testing TL hat on, I'm trying to wrap that up. I'm having very active back and forth conversation with the scalability leads.
Yeah. Do you think we'll have like a good feeling on that by end of week?
I plan to ship some of it later today, but there's other parts that we're not as clear on yet. And it's still contentious. We'll see. I'm personally trying to hold almost everything that we're looking at right now to something that Justin came up with. We're at 306 days left in the year. A week from now, we're at 300 or less. At 300 days left in the year and 3.7 million, give or take, approximate projected, we need to cut 2 1/3 every day, assuming no growth of anything else. So we're very rapidly approaching the point where you really can only be looking at very large cuts, and it won't be too long before that means something like shutting off the old registry or something. We're going to run out of good options here. So something like this scale change, yeah, it needs to happen ASAP. It's getting too late in the year to be trying to cut like 100 here and 200 there. It's not going to matter.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can have a little conversation about how we want to plan for the rest of the year. So next is Proud Migration. Marco, you want to give us an update or GFID?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So what have I tried to do? And first of all, I initially created a cluster. That is not a problem. And we have Terraform configs that are managing that cluster. So this is a good progress on that side. But we figured out, thanks to Patrick and Arno, that we have problem with the IP address space. So what's exactly the issue? We have VPC that is /16, and this is the maximum that we can get from VPC. So like the biggest one. And the issue is that we need quite a few IP addresses because AVS VPC thing is like assigning addresses to pods from the subnet. Like it is not the typical CNI with pod overlays and stuff like that. It is assigned directly for subnet. And like for each pod, we need IP address in the subnet and also for each node. So we are running into like that we need a lot of IP addresses. Like if you have 100 of nodes and you can run 110 pods, you see that this is going to be a lot, and that /16 to split to 9 different subnets is not really going to work. So what we decided to try, we had two options there. The first option was to use multiple seeders to involve VPC, but we decided to give a try to some other solution, that is to use IPv6, because IPv6 is like future-proof and something that is probably going to scale better, but we are running into some issues. And I have been actually spending my whole day today to try to figure out those issues. And it seems that Ubuntu and their AKS optimized AMI is not really working well with IPv6. I tried it with 123, with 125, it doesn't work. We are running into various issues. First of all, the first is that it was not detecting IPv6 addresses at all, but when I figured that out, to solve that issue, then Kubler started reporting various issues, like not able to find some metadata stuff, and that it is not able to find IP addresses and stuff like that. In generally, I believe that we might have, if we want to go with IPv6, so this is the question for this group as well. One option is that we can go with IPv6, but we have to go with Amazon Linux too. Because I don't think that we can Ubuntu working. And even if we do get Ubuntu working, then maintaining that hacky solutions and scripts to get it working is not really nice. And also, regardless of IPv6, I am not really happy with Ubuntu support on AKS because it is using 20.04. They're a little bit behind. They're using Kubernetes 1.5. Docker is not an option as far as I have seen. Only Kubernetes is supported. Yeah, I'm not super happy. So I will try to go with Amazon Linux too, if that's okay. So far, from what I have seen, Docker is working on it. So I believe that it is a little bit different OS because it is based on, I don't know, some CentOS or something like that. But it might work. So I'm not sure. We have that option to go with IPv6 and Amazon Linux too, and we have option to go with multiple seeders in VPC and Ubuntu. But I'm not sure if it should really go with Ubuntu, since this is not really AWS native. It might be problem with support and stuff like that.
Okay. How I'm gonna.
Yeah,
I think
say
this
let's
is.
go with AL2, right? We don't really care what the node is doing as far as it's working. I believe most of our nodes today are cars anyway. Like, no one really cares. It works fine, right?
Yeah, I think the one thing we really need is basically have the possibility to have Docker in those base cluster, because we have job with that's running kind job, and that's the real requirement here. So as long we can have that, I'm fine with whatever OS system we use. So I think this is basically investigation. We need to continue and proceed. I don't think we need to have a lot of conversation about this. This is a implementation detail. I see a lot of people from AWS in this call. If you can help Marco make progress, that would be great.
Yeah, any opinion on what to proceed, like what to choose? Should we go with Amazon Linux too? Should we go with Ubuntu? Would be very appreciated.
Marco, I think we should go with what is supported. Justin also just pinged saying that he can help. So if you want to do some work with Justin tomorrow and then like time box it and say, we are stopping here, we're just going to go to AL2 because it's and then I'll figure out what else can be done about Ubuntu later. At least we'll have one environment where something is working, rather than chase for the perfect solution that we would like to go with.
Okay.
We also don't necessarily need to scale to that many nodes. Something that we haven't done enough of in the past is just having larger nodes And also, even as is, I think our largest CI cluster is something like 150 nodes. So I don't think address exhaustion is something we need to focus on.
Right. And if you want to go with Ubuntu, just go with, a lesser number of IPv4 itself. Don't shoot for IPv6. That is another solution as well.
Yeah, maybe we can go with that. Maybe we can try multiple seeders in one VPC and try to subnet it properly.
Right.
That might work. Maybe this is the best solution. And we can even use Ubuntu in that case. So
that's the middle ground. Yeah, the best cases use what is supported by EKS folks. In the middle ground is use IPv4 with enough CIDRs that you can plug in. Yeah, those are the two solutions, and whichever you pick is fine.
Yeah. Okay, maybe that's the easiest, and maybe this is the safest, so that we don't run into some other issues along the way after we try to put everything running.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's give it that one a try.
If there is a cap on it, we'll start one more pro. Fine.
Okay, then that part is clear. I will try that tomorrow. And I hope that if that works, I will be able to finish the cluster tomorrow, eventually on Friday. What's the other issue that we have is that we have to figure out how to connect the GCP cluster, the Prow control plane in that cluster, and how to push logs to GCS bucket. But this is something that Mahmed, Ben are providing feedback on. And we will probably figure out something hopefully next week so that we can start running jobs in that cluster.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I'm sorry, I forgot to basically present the cost for AWS, but EP put some analysis the document. Do we want to go over AWS costs, or we can just skip it? Yes, no, I don't.
I think it's fine. It's interesting to note real quickly that like S3 usage does appear to be up now with things running over there, and that's good to see. And it seems like we're not remotely at risk of running out of funds. So
burn those AWS credits.
I wanted to ask something about AWS credit, but I forgot what. So I'm just gonna ping James on Slack. So I think we can close this. Yeah, so we have the remaining credits here for GCP. We can have this conversation about this later. Oh, wow. So now the open discussion. First and only Mahmed for those subjects. I think the second subject is kind of related to Jiffy. So Jiffy, I have a question for you when we end up on this item.
Hello.
So Mahmed has a question about, AP, sorry.
Next one, please. So the first one is about the end of life journey for the legacy registry, right? So it's going to be frozen. Cool, but it doesn't help this group here because we're going to run out of money, right? So what's our plan for deleting the backend registries and working out what that means and how we deal with that problem?
Well, in Zoom chat, we've been kind of talking about it, and it's also the idea of aging out images is captured in a different GitHub issue, unless that's the same one, right?
No, it's a different one.
Okay.
It's different. I don't think we should conflate those.
Okay. So in terms of deleting the GCR registries, I'm gonna look to like Ben and the Googlers, and I'm probably going to speak for them and say that's probably not going to happen.
Okay. That's fine, but what's your plan when you run out of money?
I can tell
Yeah,
you, according to the contract, if we run out of money,
Yeah.
they technically, again, according to the contract, shut down the Google account. And so everything will just fail.
there's like a CNCF credit card attached, and if the credit card isn't paid, then it shuts. But given the scope of the bill and previous discussions about this, I assume shut down. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking pretty heavily forward to do that. Registry is still one of the few obvious levers. I don't like any of those options. You know, with GCRIO Google containers, we actually never shut it down. We let the traffic trail off. It's still there, but it has trailed off quite a bit. I don't think the project has any good precedent here, but short of us having to make some kind of like emergency thing late this year where we're like, screw it, we're just deleting everything and turning it off because we have to, or something like that. I think under normal circumstances, we would expect to at least follow something kind of like the Kubernetes deprecation timeline and announce that it's going away and then give people like in releases. To me, this feels like the closest precedent we have is this is like a GA feature of Kubernetes that this is a thing. But we're not under normal circumstances, and we may have to look at something more drastic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's roll the ball now and have this conversation and arrange a redirect, for example, and get on with our day and give 2 release notice, for example. After the
So we are reaching back out to the GCR team, or what's left of it, to try to revisit redirect options. I don't know that we can bet on that.
It did not go well last time.
Well,
yeah, and I mean it's the same.
The community delete the buckets that are it's being redirected to, then Googlers don't have a choice. They have to serve a redirect, or it just looks very ugly.
Sure, but those are two completely different things, right? Like if you go to Docker Hub and you say you want them to add a redirect, this isn't a thing and it's not happening. But if you delete the images, you actually can. You know, no one at Google is trying to say that you can't delete those. With my Kubernetes hat on, I don't like the impact to users, and I would hope that we can try to avoid that by making other cost cuts or whatever else we can come up with.
Okay.
I like personally, just as like a steering man, a community member, I don't want to stick it to our users. I want to see if there's any possible way we can get anybody to help fund this through the rest of the year, if we can cut costs from other places, whatever. But I mean, I do think it is something that we have to have in our back pocket of it's preferable to the entire project shutting down, I think.
Ben, I think we are already in that spot. We need to make a decision here and start rolling it out. Worst case scenario, we will not push the button, but we should start comms on it right away. Nobody's listening. The people that we are trying to reach are not listening, and nobody wants to move.
I think if we have to do it, there's never going to be a way that we get everyone notified. Right. And also the percentage is so large that even if we have to do it pretty late, you wouldn't have to turn it off tomorrow. You could wait a good while and to do something drastic as like deleting everything.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we were going to press the button in November, for example, if you gave notice in April, that's a good thing, right?
Right.
The problem is there isn't actually a mechanism for notifying everyone, so there isn't ever going to be a version. I think it's a bad look on the project to have to announce this. I would love to avoid it, and I've been trying pretty hard to find other levers we can pull, including potential redirects if we can get that to happen.
One other thing that's come up too, and looking a bit more at the images, like remember, this stuff isn't just, the releases. Like Ben, I think you mentioned this in chat, it's not just the hosting, the Kubernetes images, but we have slews of other images in there for all the various subprojects and things like that.
Right. So if you announce something like Kubernetes 127 release says we're going to delete 124, well, but actually the bandwidth is going to things like EBS CSI driver, Node DNS cache, Nginx controller, Secret Store CSI driver, and those things have their own independent release cycles and announcements and things and have no precedent for end-of-lifing things. So I think that you have to, if we do have to do this, I think we're just looking at something drastic. It isn't tied to Kubernetes releases, and you're talking about impacting everyone and not being able to actually reach them. We don't have like a CF users wide notification mechanism. We can use Twitter, but that tweeting that we're going to delete everything is that still feels pretty bad.
Yeah,
there's not, it's, you know, we can try to federate this out and say that every project that's hosted on here needs to do their best to notify their users, but I think that's the kind of like high churn, high noise thing that I don't want to push that button unless we really have to.
Can
That's my take.
do something less? Just one second. Something less drastic in not cutting it off, but reduce the available bandwidth on it until it's painful. That's a way for everyone to get the message in a way that doesn't break them.
So if we want to go into all the technical options, Justin and I have been preparing a list of bad ideas to propose to the GCR team. That is one of the bad ideas on the list. I can't make any guarantees that we can ship something like this. You know, it's a big enterprise company now, and there are procedures for these things, and I don't know if we actually have the leverage to say that we're going to introduce something new like throttling. The community has some levers that we could pull as well on the bad idea list. Like we could temporarily make them the backing registries private for increasing time windows. You could just change the access controls on them.
So if it goes away for like 10 minutes at a time.
Right. We could do rolling brownouts. I don't think we want to have to do that, and I think we do. Yeah, we should have that conversation. I don't know which one of those is our best move. I think that I'm kind of, again, this is just me, but I'm kind of leaning towards, I think that if we really run out of options and we're going to shut down, then the answer is just wholesale cutting it out. Whichever specific implementation of that, just everything, all the images, all gone. Because if we're saying, oh, new images are available, well, all images are available on the new registry if people are going to deal with that. I'm not that worried about the users that have been staying up to date, migrating things. We've been announcing that you should use the registry since 1.25. The problem is all the users that are expecting this to be a stable foundation for their infrastructure that are not upgrading constantly and are consuming images from all sorts of sub projects that we host and will be broken by this.
One other option that I was thinking of the other day is like, so we have our core things, you know, the Kubernetes releases. If we pull those and people try and upgrade to whatever, that can potentially introduce it down. But if we pull images like, you know, Nginx Ingress or other things from the old registry, you know, yes, they will have problems, but their cluster won't go down. Like,
it's a good point.
It's a signal to them that like, oh, I need to go check and see, you know, what's going on. Like if we pull the you know, the K8s DNS node cache or the AWS EBS CSI driver, the two like really big ones that are pulled all the time, people would start to notice.
And then at the top of Kubernetes.io, we throw a little GIF of Clippy saying, hey, did your cluster just screw up? Click here for more.
That was basically the other thing I was going to suggest is that realistically, most of the costs are actually from like, you know, specific large, highly pulled images. So if we were going to start deleting things, it also might make sense. Awkward to propose as a Googler, but hey, let's delete the AWS EBS CSI driver because at least that's a subset of users that are also the most expensive users versus like everyone. There's a lot of options we can explore here. They're all bad.
One sec, Ben here. Can we publish this list of images somewhere so that we know what we are dealing with and what we need to send comms about, and how many pulls and you know, how much cost it's generating?
Yeah, I meant to prompt Justin to talk about that in this meeting. I didn't realize he was going to miss it. We'll follow up on that because I know he's a little bit more reachable on chat than Slack.
Right. I do like I have a list that I can paste of a few images.
Ideally, though,
top
we should
10.
also have the weights, though. Like,
Okay.
but we
So-
can start with that.
Top 10. Let's do top 10. Okay.
Okay.
Hippie,
Here.
you've been trying to raise your hand.
No, just typing. I guess the other thing is we've done this research before, so whenever someone's ready, we can kind of look into it.
think
from the
that-
logs.
I think the thing that we did different that might be different this time is it weighted by bandwidth.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Let's do that, and we'll figure out how to.
So the list I just posted is the one weighted by bandwidth.
Right.
We don't have an SLA. The community could, like I said, the community could, without any contact with the GCR team, I'm pretty sure we could implement rolling blackouts just by toggling the access controls on it. And having a notice, or we could delete specific images. We can't do a redirect that way. We've been trying to explore them. There's a couple other odd ideas. Technically in the image spec, if you were to like recreate an image, you could recreate a modified version that has a different manifest that listed alternate URLs for the layers. And that sort of works. In practice, some clients are better at leveraging that than others. We were looking into that if that would give us an option to make it so that people would try somewhere else first. It's a bad idea. It changes the digest, and some clients will fail once, so you can't make them pick from a potentially unavailable endpoint first, because once they hit one failure, they'll just bail on the pull. We've also been talking about every possible variation on a scoped redirect, including redirecting like a portion of requests or whatever. We have a pretty long list of possible suggestions for the GCR team, but we don't know yet if we can get traction there. John was our main point of contact there, and he's at ChainGuard now as of this week. So we're reaching out to who he pointed us to next. We don't have as much of an established relationship there.
So I honestly think the toggling the ACLs is going to be our best bet.
Or deleting specific images maybe.
Yeah.
But like I said, because there's such a large amount that you can cut from that, and it's such a obnoxious thing to have to do, I'm hoping we can pull a few more levers in the next week to try to see how close we can get with things like scale, the triage, anywhere else in the project that doesn't necessarily cause the project to shut down and doesn't cause our users to shut down. I think we still have time to pull some of those, even if they're not quite as massive, but that time window is narrowing. And this is clearly the next last option we have.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's revisit this in like a month's time, see where we're at.
So for now, I hope you all saw the utility for identifying the old registries. Can you all go get people to do that in their own clusters, so at least folks know what they are running, and they shouldn't be running stuff from our registry anyway. So that's a lost cause at this point.
Dude, they do it all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Bob in particular has been doing a bunch of outreach on this as well, which is something that we can do, that we can still try to do in the short term. But to be honest, I'm more optimistic about that for future years.
Yeah.
We've been asking
I'm trying to switch on comms
changes and everything.
Yeah. So sorry, Ben. I'm not getting good feedback. I think there's a lag.
Fede?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one quick comment because there is some discussion about SLAs, SLOs on the chat. I think GCR is an interesting case. It's not like a regular API that, if it's down, nobody can consume it. Like, you only need GCR when you are bringing up a new node, or basically that, right? It's not directly related. Like 1 minute down is 1 minute, workload down usually, based on my understanding. So we have some wiggle room to play there too.
Right, Fede, but sometimes people switch on like pull image every time you need it kind of flags, right? So that
Yes.
becomes a problem.
Yeah.
This might change their behavior.
Yeah, but it is generally true that like nothing that we provide has like an announced SLA. So we're only holding ourselves to the standard. If we don't want to break our users, there's nothing even approaching an agreement there.
I also just want to waste everyone's time and point out that this is an unprecedented thing in the fact that we are a project that offers key infrastructure, and that key infrastructure is things like this registry. Not many other open source projects do that, and none to this scale. So it's like, yay for us, but also did kind of, make our own bed and we're lying in it.
Yep.
I think a couple other projects do, but they made a point of doing mirrors sooner.
We should go source available, Ben. Only source. You can build your own thing.
I guess-
Folks, we have like 6 minutes left. We have another subject to talk about. Can we close this? Because we've been talking a lot about this. So I think there's like, for the moment, Mohammed, to answer your question, we are not deleting the entire backend storage for kids.dsha.io. I think we can revisit that later and see what's happening. Also, one note, like this is a financial problem, not a technical one. So we might need, I think we should basically try to escalate to the governance board and say, we're running out of budget again. There's a good chance we might ask you to pay by end of the month. So there are still options before we trigger I will call it the nuclear option.
Yeah, sounds good by me. As long as it's on our radar and we have a good story to tell, at least by Q1EU, that'd be great.
Okay. So next, still Mohammed.
Okay.
Azure
so
ID.
Okay. So AWS, right? We can't really use our AWS accounts properly without.
You
identity
were
center.
getting really quiet suddenly.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. It's
Yeah,
it's weird. Like you'll sound loud and then you get quiet again. So
Sorry, I moved my head away from the microphone. Sorry.
Oh, got it.
Okay, cool. All right, so AWS Identity Center is super important. Otherwise, we can't do access to AWS accounts at scale, which is important for us. I evaluated a few things like using Keycloak, Auth0, and a couple other things. It didn't pan out as well as I thought it would. The best solution is Azure AD. It works very nicely. It's supported by both vendors. Well documented. It supports both SAML and SCIM. So SAML is the bit that does the login, and SCIM is the part that creates the users in AWS when the correct users and groups exist in Azure AD. So we need to arrange for an Azure AD tenant and a large number of Azure P1 or P2 licenses to make this work. So GF, can you get me some? You're muted, by the way.
yeah,
And-
I can probably get you some, but not only that, I can connect you with someone who can definitely get you some.
Oh, sounds good. While you're at it, can you get us some Azure credits too?
Probably a small amount
Okay.
at
In
first.
fairness, I don't need much anyway.
Right. I mean, truly, if nothing else, we can pay for some of the credits, but I know that we have been talking with Microsoft, so who knows?
All right,
Anyways,
yes.
I can definitely connect you and unblock you there.
Okay, thanks a lot. So once we have an Azure AD tenant, we can bootstrap it and start using GitOps to create users for everybody that wants to work on an AWS account, and we'll just hook it up properly.
Just because I'm thinking of everything, is this something that could also be tied into GCP access?
Yes, like a normal corporate place, yes.
Hooray, cool.
Any question regarding this? So I have my question for Jiffy. Where are we with Okta?
I was waiting to see where things landed, and if we still need Okta, I can ping Chris once he gets back, because I think he's the one that has the contact there. But he was traveling, then he was on vacation, then he's traveling. He'll be back next week.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about before we have 3 minutes left?
I think we're good.
Okay. So,
Thanks, everyone.
and bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Cheers.